I feel like I've been doing this the last few days since since the Messi news. I'm like, anybody that hops on a mic on this show, especially someone obviously very connected with the Miami area and obviously an announcer for MLS. But Messi, bro, tell me, Witty, how should I be feeling, bro? Tell me.
Well, I think my sort of primary feeling right now is curious. In the sense that, like, all right, so what happens from here? Because I think a lot of people talk about some of the shorter term gains, namely Instagram followers that have come Inter Miami's way as a result of this Lionel Messi transfer. But I'm sort of thinking bigger. And it was interesting in sort of hearing, people talk about like, oh, well, David Beckham only did this in MLS when he came. But David Beckham essentially announced a new era in Major League Soccer. You saw a number of investors come into the league, a number of expansion teams come into the league. They saw what happened when David Beckham showed up and thought, well, there's some potential here. And now, 16 years later, there's 16 new clubs in MLS since he joined. There's this entire infrastructure is built enormously ever since. And so, yeah, there are all these sort of cotton candy, the tickets are more expensive, and there are more Instagram followers, and that's cool, and that's great. But what's the actual big stuff that's going to happen as a result of this? And that, I think, sort of remains to be seen. There was an article in The Athletic this week about kind of how Miami are thinking over some of the hotels that they're staying in and the travel. That's the sort of stuff that I'm intrigued by. Is it going to be a raising of the level, the raising of standards, not just with Miami,
right,
but with all of the teams? What happens when he goes to teams that play on artificial turf? Is he going to play in those games? And if there's a big headline that says Lionel Messi leaves a bunch of fans wanting because he doesn't want to play on artificial turf, that's a big deal, and it'll make a lot of teams question the surfaces that they play on. So it's that sort of stuff that I'm interested in. The reverberations. What is the big change that happens from here? How big does it become? Obviously, from a personal standpoint, I could not be more ecstatic, both in terms of Inter Miami. Obviously, I'm a day one fan. Yeah. Obviously, the club hasn't been around that long, but I think I'm like season ticket holder number one. So that's incredible from a professional standpoint. Obviously, the fact that we work for MLS Season Pass, we all want it to grow. We want people to subscribe. We want people to jump on board, and it seems like people will now for the run into this season. So that obviously we're enormously excited about. But I am genuinely curious about sort of how Messi raises the standards. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be by bringing in a bunch of other stars, but obviously raises the profile of the league. And do other teams go out and say, we don't want to go get Messi, we don't want to go get some other similarly aged star, but maybe go out and get some big name player from another team, and that player is willing to listen because Lionel Messi came. I think it's that sort of stuff that I'm interested in.
Witty, but actually what I do want to know is who's calling that first Messi game? Are you putting your name in the hat? Do you have to fight Taylor Twellman for the opportunity? How does it get divvied up?
I have no idea. I have no intent on fighting Taylor Twellman. I feel like Taylor Twellman will be there, and I hope he has a great time, and I hope he does his usual magnificent work on the game. But it's been a funny parlor game from within the MLS Season Pass announcing community going, well, it's funny because, the stadium is literally a 20-minute drive from my house.
Right.
And I feel like I will only be seeing it in passing. I will be waving at it and like, all right, that seems, have a nice time.
You work for MLS, but they're going to be like, get a subscribe. That's how you're going to see it.
Yeah. Well, I do have season tickets, and also I have tickets, and it's worked out for a few of the away games. So like there's one in LA that's on a Sunday, and so I'll probably be able to go to that. And there's one in Orlando that's on a Sunday, so I might be able to go as a fan to a couple of those.
Okay.
But yeah, that'll probably be as close. Well, look, obviously I hope, and if anyone from the MLS Season Pass production team or the bosses are listening, I'd happily do it. But yeah, we'll see how.
I want to say
out.
this, and I want to give you some praise, because obviously there's been a lot of matches I've watched, and I'm hearing you on the call and on US Open Cup as well. But there is, this has been a big transition in your life. Obviously, leaving Le Batard Show and working there, daily, to focusing on your being an announcer for MLS. And you know what? I gotta say, I see the focus and the effort, the energy. Witty, you are becoming the a more common voice where I'm like, I hope Witty is on this call, or whenever there's a big goal on a game that you're on, I'm like this energy is starting to feel like this is what the voice of American soccer is supposed to sound like. So I'm loving it.
That's very high praise, man. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I'm pouring. I always poured a ton into it and basically had no other life. It was LeBatard Show, my announcing life, and that was about it. But now, like, I'm really dedicating a bunch of my time and energy into, like, not just obviously the work, like getting ready, but trying to like what you mentioned was sort of redoubling your efforts on making sure that you hit those moments really well and thinking about it. It's weird to sort of spend your week thinking about, all right, if this happens in the game, then I'll say that, and like actually like putting some intentionality behind words. And it's completely different than doing something like this, where I feel like you and I are just having a conversation. And people will be like, oh, do you have an announcer voice? And I say no, but now I kind of say yes, because there is no other format, I guess, in which people talk, in which you're being so purposeful about what you're saying, right? You've put thought into everything that you said. You put a bunch of this work. And so, yeah, I mean, I sound different because I'm not that purposeful in other bits of my life. But when I'm having dinner with friends, I'm just talking. When I'm hanging out with you on a podcast, I'm just talking. That's like prepared talking. It's completely different. Yeah. And I'm loving it.